What's up, everyone? Welcome to the channel, and today I'm going to be giving you my full card predictions and betting breakdown for UFC Fight Night Amanda Ribas versus Rose Namajunas. This card's okay. We got some fun matchups, some good prospects, and I think some of these performances will turn out to be very entertaining, but the main event isn't so good. And the first fight of the night, which we will get into right now, is complete dog shit. We have Mick Parkin versus Mohammad Usman. Bad, sloppy heavyweights, but I'm going to be picking Mick Parkin here. I can understand the Mohammad Usman side as he is a pretty strong guy. He's not fat and he is fairly athletic for this division, but I'm just so low on his striking where he just wings wide hooks 90% of the time. And when we have seen him throughout his career struggle, it's been against Zach Palga, a guy at PFL named Brandon Sales. There was a guy in the Contender Series, Mitchell Seep, Brandon Seep, something like that. The guy's last name was Seep. Kind of these volume guys that can beat you at range. And Mick Parkin is one of these guys. Even Parker Porter as well, ripping the low kick, having success against Mohammad Usman at range. If I remember correctly, I thought that Parker Porter should have won that fight live. I rewatched it recently, but to be honest with you guys, I didn't really score it. So, anyways, I hate Mohammad Usman striking. I don't mind his takedowns, especially for this division. If you're a grappler, you're probably going to find a lot of success if you have even decent level takedown entries. But I don't think Mohammad Usman has great takedown entries whatsoever. I think they're kind of rushed. They're based a lot on drive. And Mick Parkin, to me, has shown decent takedown defense. I like that he trains with Tom Aspinall, who obviously is the interim heavyweight champion and is a BJJ black belt and has had success with his wrestling on his own, right? On the Contender Series, what I wanted to mention, he faced a guy named Eduardo Neves, who is fat and bad, I understand. But he got sweeped a couple of times, and to defend sweeps in the heavyweight division, you have to be somewhat competent because sweeps tend to topple over every fat dude on earth, except for Mick Parkin, who got a whizza, and he used the whizza to get back up to the feet, and then from there, he outstruck the guy. I think he knocked him out in the first round. It might have been a submission, actually, but he showed some decent scrambles in that fight as well. I kind of rate any heavyweight that shows a whizza. Now, his last performance, I'll get into it, against Karl Machado, it looked fucking horrible. I completely understand, and I think Karl Machado is absolute dog shit, but I still think Mohammad Usman striking is dog shit as well. But actually, when I say Karl Machado striking is absolute dog shit and just Karl Machado's dog shit, that's not fair because it is the heavyweight division, and I actually think Karl Machado will have success in the heavyweight division, and I thought he beat Mick Parkin in that fight, so this is going to sound a little bit hypocritical. I just think when it comes to the heavyweight division, they are all dog shit up until maybe the top 5 of the rankings. But I kind of weirdly trust Mick Parkin to stuff the takedowns. And on the feet, I think he has a good style to beat Mohammad Usman. But Mohammad Usman might have a good style to beat Mick Parkin. So it's a hard one to predict. But I just kind of trust Mick Parkin to pitter-pat at range with his jab, his straight right. Straight punches, good for Mick Parkin. He's got good low kicks, and low kicks have given Mohammad Usman a lot of problems in the past with guys like Brandon Sales, where he lost to on the PFL scene, Zach Palga. One more fight. I'm not remembering it right now. Parker Porter a little bit, and I want to say another fight as well, but I'll leave it there. Mick Parkin has a style to screw with Mohammad Usman. It's not a good style for Mohammad Usman to deal with, is what I'm trying to get at there. And Mohammad Usman may have a bad style against Mick Parkin simply because he pressures forward and he throws big, powerful hooks, and Mick Parkin just might be absolute dog shit off the back foot. As it looked like that against Karl Machado, but the thing about the Karl Machado performance is Karl Machado is a little bit weird, and what I will give Karl Machado credit for, even though I think he sucks, I don't think he's one of the lowest level heavyweights, and Mick Parkin has beaten guys like Jamal Pokes, who have recently proven to be pretty decent, but what's his damn name? Karl Machado, sorry. He's a southpaw, which can provide problems for some strikers, and not only is he a southpaw, he's got very good straight punches, and to a decent degree, he is pretty explosive, and his straight punches are pretty quick for the bottom feeder heavyweights, so it's kind of like a weird thing. I think since Karl Machado is a southpaw, is explosive, and has good straight punches, that brought Mick Parkin problems. And I think Mick Parkin stuffs the takedowns, and I really think that Mohammad Usman is really, really bad when it comes to his striking. And just the low kick, the jabs at range will give Mick Parkin probably 2 to 3 rounds. I don't like that this is at the apex for the Mick Parkin side, but Mick Parkin is no stranger to the heavyweight apex, is no stranger to the UFC apex. So it is what it is. I hate this fight so much. I can understand why you'd want to be on both sides. Don't bet this fight unless you're really confident Mohammad Usman beats Mick Parkin, but I don't know. It's really hard to just kind of get a grasp on how bad or how good the bottom feeder heavyweights are, and Mohammad Usman just hasn't looked good recently. Neither has Mick Parkin, so fuck, I mean, Let's move on to the next fight of the card. Andre Lima versus Igor Severino, also known as Igor da Silva. I love this fight. This might be a hot take about this fight, but this might be my favorite fight on the entire card. If not, it's up there for sure. And that's not just me trying to sound like a hardcore fan. Like, I truly believe both these guys are very solid prospects. Andre Lima, I want to say he's around 25 years old, but he's a kickboxing champion in Brazil, I think national 3 times, and then he's a South American kickboxing champion 2 times, and I imagine that's a pretty decent accolade to have. And when I watch this guy strike, he looks like a very solid striker, and on top of that, he has very nice sweeps, which is a very underrated part about his game. He is sweeping people left and right. He has been taken down before and put in an arm triangle, but he fought through it, was very patient. He seems very patient, calm, and that's something I really do rate about him. And a lot of fighters in general, if you're patient, calm, you don't look like you're stressing out there, something I like to see. He seems to be able to preserve his cardio. But anyways, he survived the arm triangle, eventually showed off some good scrambles, got back on top, and I think I want to say he won with his grappling and ended up TKOing that guy. He's a BJJ purple belt, I think I mentioned that, but he's shown some decent takedown defense and showcased some very good takedown defense on his Dana White's Contender Series debut, his fight, whatever it is, and stuffed all the takedowns. I think he had some grappling success of his own, if I remember correctly. I like the sweeps from this guy. I like his striking defense, and I haven't even talked about Igor Severino yet. Igor Severino is 20 years old, and he is fun, he is wild, he is powerful. He's a shoot-the-box guy, trains with Charles Oliveira. He's a BJJ purple belt, but you know it's legit coming from the shoot-the-box gym. He's fun, man, and I could see him winning this fight. I am going with Andre Lima. I'm going to pick him by decision. I haven't seen Igor go later in fights, and I think Andre Lima has a pretty decent chin. I was going through his record. He only has 1 loss by KO, and it was due to a cut, so that is something interesting to note. I think Andre Lima probably has a good chin. He will be able to take the shots from Igor da Silva, and when I watched who Igor da Silva was facing, not that they were horrible, but he got hit at times. That's also something to note, but I don't think they're fantastic strikers to the level of Andre Lima, the Brazilian and South American kickboxing champion. I think that's something pretty easy to note, and when I'm going to describe the striking style from Andre Lima, it is very good in terms of what I like to predict for fighters to win. I don't know if that made sense, but he switches stances very well. He's got good power. He has good kicks out of both stances. He's very good at cutting his opponents off and using kicks to land while they're exiting out of range after they get cut off. Anyways, he's good at luring opponents into his kicks. Very good at fighting at range. And I'm telling you right now, if he gets through Igor da Silva, I genuinely think that this guy could potentially become a champion. I don't know if I'm dick riding, and I know his performance on the Contender Series wasn't that good, but his opponent was running from him the whole time, and his opponent was kind of a jiu-jitsu nerd. I looked at his career. He had like 12 submission wins, something like that. So he was trying to get the fight down to the ground. Couldn't make it happen. And Andre Lima stayed very patient, very calm. He didn't really rush anything. And he showed some decent counters as well. Igor da Silva can make it wild, and he can land big shots. And when he is striking, he is very high volume. I don't know if he can keep that pace for 3 rounds. And even if he can, I don't know if he's going to deal well with the low kicks from Andre Lima in this matchup. I want to keep talking about Andre Lima. He's my guy. But he's got a good high guard. Stays pretty defensively sound. His head movement doesn't look fantastic, but he's actually very good at evading strikes. Perfectly out of the way just in time for a counter. I haven't really seen him fight too much off of the back foot because I wasn't able to find much film on him. I think I would watch like 3 of his fights, but I couldn't find much more because everybody's name in Brazil happens to be Andre Lima, and I'm finding just so many different mixed martial arts guys, so it's kind of funny to see that. But when I have watched him, he looks like a very technically sound striker. I love his kicks. Kicks to the head, body, and legs beautifully. Out of both stances. Defensively, pretty damn sound. He's got good straight punches. He does load up at times, which does concern me. And if this turns into a brawl, I might favor Igor da Silva there, and I do like Igor da Silva's ability to push a good pace. When I look at Igor da Silva's opponents on the regional scene and opponent on the Contender Series, I didn't like it. I rewatched that fight, and they said that his opponent actually fought at strawweight, which I was like, how does that work out? I went through it. The guy typically fights at 115, and now this wasn't a bad opponent. This actually looked like a pretty skilled opponent, but he was a smaller guy, landing a little bit too much for my liking on Igor da Silva, having a little bit too much success on Igor da Silva for me to want to pick him over Andre Lima. And from what I watched on Igor da Silva, he hasn't dealt with anyone that can kick like Andre Lima. And there was a guy named Davy Souza. I'm actually surprised I remember that. Typically, I forget regional opponents' names, but I was rewatching that fight. Davy Souza clipped him with a very nice straight right, and Andre Lima happens to have a very good straight right. I think if Andre Lima gets pressure here, this is where Igor da Silva can have success, but I'm not going to just say it's wraps because Andre Lima seems like a guy that has pretty good counters, and I'm interested to see what he can do off the back foot. When I come to the grappling, I'm going to give the grappling edge to Igor da Silva because if anyone is shooting takedowns, it is probably Igor da Silva. But I think Andre Lima should be able to defend, if not survive any submission attempts, and I love the trips from Andre Lima. He's good within the clinch as well. Good sweeps. I am describing this guy like he's the next coming of John Jones. I just think he has the tools and he's patient enough, and there's just certain levels of maturity to his game at the age of 25 years old that leads me to think he could potentially be a future champion. But Igor da Silva, wild, and this could be the style that kind of gives Andre Lima problems. And I do like that this is in the apex for the style of Igor da Silva. And Igor da Silva could be the shoot-the-box guy that's just running through everybody. I love his output. If he can keep it through 3 rounds, I could really see him beating Andre Lima. I just think Andre Lima, the kickboxing champion, in what I believe should be a striking fight, should win this one. I feel like I went way into detail into this, and I feel like I just talked about Andre Lima for like 5 minutes, but fun fight. I'm really excited for this one. Igor da Silva is also a very solid prospect, only 20 years old, but since he is 20 years old, I'm going to kind of bet on the fact that he's a little bit young, too young, maybe a little bit inexperienced, and just not 25 years old like Andre Lima. Last thing I'm going to mention, Andre Lima has been extremely, extremely active throughout his career, which I absolutely love, and this is going to be like the longest layoff he's probably had ever in his career, which is 4 to 5 months. If you look at his kickboxing career, he's fighting like once a month, maybe once every 2 months. Same thing with his MMA career. All of his wins have been within the past year, and he showed improvements throughout most of those fights from what I understand. Andre Lima's the pick. I'm going to say by decision. I'll say 30-27. I could be completely wrong. Maybe 29-28. I'll say 1 round is really close because Igor da Silva is just charging in the whole time, but I think he'll get lit up charging in, and the leg kicks will start to slow him down, and he's going to struggle with that. But he has good leg kicks of his own, so we'll see how that works out. But I think Andre Lima will be finding counters on Igor da Silva when he rushes in a little bit wildly, and he throws his hooks a little bit too wide for my liking. Not extremely wide, like he has quick hands. So I'm excited for this one. I've said that multiple times. Jeez, man, holy fuck. We'll move on. We're going to move on. But at minus 180, I wouldn't hammer Andre Lima, and I wouldn't really throw him in too many of my parlays. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Montserrat Ruiz versus Daria Zelenzinnikova. Montserrat Rendon is also what you call that chick, not Montserrat Ruiz. I think it was Montserrat Ruiz, or is Montserrat Ruiz someone else? Anyways, Montserrat is going to try to take this fight down to the ground. I don't love her takedown entries. I think they look slow. I think they're telegraphed. She's better when it comes to the jiu-jitsu. I think she could potentially find a submission or control Daria for 3 rounds, but I'm going to trust Daria Zelenzinnikova to win this one because I like her striking to a decent degree. Now, when I watch it, I'm thinking, damn, this is a little bit sloppy, but I'm kind of at that point with women's MMA where I realize almost every striker in women's MMA is sloppy to some degree, and Daria seems to have a good chin, and I like the fact that she is wild to some degree, but when she gets wild, she resorts to straight punches, and she doesn't seem to overextend that much. At times she does, but I don't see Montserrat taking her down. I think Daria will be able to sprawl the takedowns. If you watched the fight on the regional scene, it was her 3rd most recent performance. She stuffed takedowns, sprawled them beautifully. She lost to Melissa Dixon, who is actually in the UFC right now and has had success beating Irina Alexieva. I thought Alexieva would win that fight. Melissa Dixon dogged her way through it. And, yeah, looked pretty good doing it. She looks like a good, solid prospect in the UFC. But when it comes to Daria Zelenzinnikova, I think she'll be able to sprawl the takedowns. Like I said, I don't love the takedown entries from Montserrat. And I think her straight punches and she has some good power, which is something good to have in women's MMA. But her straight punches, her ability to be wild, pushing a pace, should win her this fight. I'll say 30-27, maybe 29-28, something like that. But she is fun to watch, and this is one of the few women's MMA fighters, and there's actually a couple of them on here that I actually am somewhat of a fan of because they have a fun fighting style. She's fun to watch. I hope she continues to win. I hope she has good grappling defense because she is the one that can actually bring some excitement to some women's MMA fights because she goes in there and she scraps and she walks forward. She's got very good knees within the clinch as well. She's got some good low kicks, which I could see bringing Montserrat Rendon some problems, as Montserrat was exposed, in my opinion, in the striking in her most recent performance. I don't remember who it was against. I want to say it was against a Brazilian chick. Rewatch that one. Anyways, Daria Zelenzinnikova, say by decision. I could see by knockout as well. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Stephen Nguyen versus Jarno Errens. I almost picked Jarno Errens, but when it came down to it, I didn't pull the trigger. I looked at Jarno Errens as a 2-to-1 dog, and I was just like, oh, I'm going to pick him. It says great value. I have a small bet on Jarno Errens. The problem is I kind of don't trust Jarno Errens to do what he needs to do against Stephen Nguyen in this matchup. Jarno Errens can't get hit, and he gets hit. And if he plays that game where he's on the outside, kind of like a Josh Cooleybow was trying to do against a Danny Silva, except Danny Silva was able to close the distance, cut him off, and land big shots last weekend, and that's why he won that fight. Still very competitive. But Stephen Nguyen is not Danny Silva. Stephen Nguyen can't really fight very well out of bull stances. He's not extremely good at cutting off the cage. Stephen Nguyen will win in striking battles if you allow him to hit you, and Jarno does that because he crashes in forward on a straight line. Now, if Jarno says, I'm just going to stay technical, I'm going to stick to my straight punches, because he has good straight punches, and he's got a good uppercut, a good knee up the middle, and we have seen Stephen Nguyen flatlined by a knee up the middle, a flying knee actually, by Aaron Nola, and Aaron Nola's not that good, and it seemed like Stephen Nguyen was kind of struggling with Aaron Nola at times because he was a rangier guy. At times, you kind of drift around the side of the octagon circle. If Jarno Errens sticks to circling in this matchup, popping his jab, and just doesn't really commit to anything in the pocket, he will win this fight. It's just when I watch Jarno Errens fight, and I've watched a lot of his fights on the regional scene for whatever reason, just for this matchup, because I had no clue where I was going, I just couldn't pick him because he got clipped by a grappler. I think it was his most recent loss in the regional scene. He's been 5 rounds, so he has good cardio, but so does Steve Nguyen. He's been in the Apex 3 times now. Lost the first one to Aaron Nola and then won the second 2 on the Contender Series. Now, I will say, his 2 Contender Series wins were against pretty bad opponents. AJ Cunningham, very bad opponent. We just saw him get absolutely massacred by Ludovic Klein. And to put in perspective to who AJ Cunningham is, there was like a prize picks prop where it was like over under 30 significant strikes between Ludovic Klein and AJ Cunningham. And I thought Ludovic Klein was going to find a knockout in the first 2 rounds. And I still hammered the over on that line because I know AJ Cunningham gets hit like 10 strikes per second. And Steve Nguyen was struggling at times against AJ Cunningham. I know he basically knocked him out at the end of round 2. And I know he basically, or actually he did knock him out in round 2. It was a TKO kind of weird scenario. And he beat the brakes off of AJ Cunningham in the highlights, but if you rewatch that fight, AJ Cunningham is landing extremely clean, giving him problems, pushing forward, and just based off of surviving, he is landing clean on Stephen Nguyen, giving him problems, and also AJ Cunningham was making Steve Nguyen miss a lot more than he should have been, and one thing that I hate, absolutely hate about Steve Nguyen is at his core, he is a head hunter, and he will do nothing but hunt for your damn head. He would be so much better if he just dipped down to the body at times, if he would rip a couple of low kicks, but he doesn't do that, and it's just almost telegraphed at times what he's going to go for. So I don't mind Jarno Errens winning this fight as it goes later, just because of how telegraphed Steve Nguyen can be at times. I don't think he's that good. I don't understand people saying, oh, he's a pretty good prospect. He hasn't shot a takedown in his last 4 matchups, but I look at Jarno Errens, and it's almost like anyone that shoots a takedown on this guy will get it. His takedown defense sucks. Even though he might have the better jiu-jitsu here, Stephen Nguyen is a BJJ blue belt, just so you guys know. Although Jarno might have the better submission game, I haven't seen anything that's impressed me that much. He's a judo brown belt, but I haven't seen him land any successful takedowns so far, or just anything that has impressed me in the grappling realm. And when he gets taken down, that's it. Fish out of water. He is done for the round, and he will just sit there, try to survive, and then it's back to the next round. I think that Stephen Nguyen might actually shoot takedowns now that it's not on the Dana White's Contender Series, because if you look back at some of his earlier fights on the regional scene, when he's not knocking out guys early, he will mix in some takedowns, and I think he might have just not wanted to grapple on the regional scene, on the Contender Series, just for the fact that he wanted his contract. I think that Jarno Errens is going to be winning this fight for the majority of the time, but he's going to be coming crashing in on a straight line. Like Jarno, at times, he'll circle pretty decently well, has some weird like fidgety feints and whatnot, and then he'll crash straight in on a straight line, and then that's where he gets clipped. Happened multiple times against Sungwoo Choi, happened against this grappler on the regional scene. I'm actually going to pull up his name right now because I'm getting pissed off that I'm not bringing this up. But he got dropped by Mert Ozyiladurm, something like that. The guy's name is Mert. And he got taken down time and time and time again. And when he got taken down, that was wraps. The round was over. It was just controlled time galore. And I think Stephen Nguyen, he can do one of these things. Chop low kicks, and he'll win this fight because Jarno has struggled massively with Sungwoo Choi and William Gomez's low kicks. And I think if you have a decent low kick, you beat Jarno Errens. But Stephen Nguyen abandons low kicks non-stop, and that's what I hate. This is why I'm mentioning Stephen Nguyen being the headhunter and why I'm actually pretty decently high on Jarno Errens, considering he's 2-1 underdog right now, is that Stephen Nguyen has the tools. Like, he's shown a pretty decent low kick, but he just doesn't go to the low kick. He will headhunt nonstop, and that is dangerous against Jarno Errens, where if you just commit yourself to a round of low kicks against Jarno Errens, I would be very confident in Stephen Nguyen. Or if he works in takedowns, he will win this fight. I just think there's so many holes in Jarno Errens' striking game, especially with the striking defense. And although he is durable, and everyone will tell you Jarno Errens is durable, when he gets hit, he gets hurt, and he recovers well. But those are the type of moments that lose you rounds. And for that reason, I'm going to pick Stephen Nguyen by decision. I'll say 29-28. I think Jarno Errens will have a round where he doesn't get clipped, and he'll be winning that, making it awkward. Weird kicks he has. He's just a weird, unorthodox guy, but he gets hit so much. And when he crashes in, like I said, it's just straightforward on the line, and I feel like he's going to get caught within the pocket. And he will trade in the pocket with Stephen Nguyen, and he's going to get hurt at some point. I think Stephen Nguyen, where am I going with this? Stephen Nguyen will land the bigger shots, and he will win the fight based off of that. But he is a headhunter, and if he is not low-kicking Jarno and he is not landing takedowns on Jarno, that's where this fight can get weird. But I don't think Stephen Nguyen's the worst. I just don't love his footwork. I think he's a little bit... I just haven't been impressed by his performances. I'll leave it there. I'm not going to call him the worst fighter in the world, but I'm just telling you right now, I don't like a headhunter in this matchup, and I don't think his power is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Although that knockdown / basically knockout against AJ Cunningham at the end of round 1 was nasty. I'm cheering for Stephen Nguyen. And Jarno has lost his 2 fights in the UFC thus far, so this is do or die for him. So maybe this is the breakthrough. And maybe since he is long and awkward, I've said this so many times now. So Stephen Nguyen is the damn pick. He should be the guy that can take this fight down to the ground. I think he's shown some decent takedown defense, although he has been taken down by the guy he fought second on the Contender Series, his first win. That guy should not have been fighting at the lightweight division. He should have been fighting at featherweight. That was a small guy, and since then that guy is, I think, has retired from MMA. So I don't think he's been beating good fighters, but I just look at Jarno Errens getting taken down by everybody, and no matter who it is, when he's taken down, he is there for the rest of the round. So Stephen Nguyen is the pick by landing the bigger shots. Moving on to the next fight of the card, Miles Johns versus Cody Gibson. I'm going with Miles Johns reluctantly, not very confidently. I just think he's going to find the takedowns. And I know Cody Gibson has a wrestling background. He's a wrestling coach. I want to say he was a JUCO All-American Wrestling Champion. JUCO All-American Wrestler, not wrestling champion. But anyways, he has some wrestling to his pocket. I've just seen him get taken down, and that makes me think, okay, well, that JUCO All-American shit doesn't mean anything because, I mean, Thomas Peterson was a guy that was a JUCO All-American, not JUCO, a JUCO wrestling champion. Same thing with Curtis Blades, JUCO wrestling champion, and these are guys that have both failed to have a lot of success in their grappling. Curtis Blades just got taken down multiple times by Jailton Almeida, like 7 times in the first round. Thomas Peterson couldn't find a takedown on Jamal Pogue to save his damn life. That's a different division. That is the heavyweight division. I understand that, and that's kind of different from this. But Cody Gibson is a guy that's been taken down multiple times throughout his career. I didn't think the tough opponents were that good on that season, and he got beat by Brad Katona, who just doesn't have good footwork. Garrett Harmfield beat Brad Katona very handily on the feet. Sure, he got taken down, but Garrett Harmfield's takedown defense is a little bit questionable, and even then, he did a good job of scrambling back up to the feet, making sure Brad Katona couldn't control him for the most part. I would say up until round 3, but he clearly won that fight on the feet when it was on the feet just by having pretty solid footwork. And maybe Garrett Armfield is just a very solid striker, but I looked at Brad Katona, I'm like, dude, this guy is very predictable. He's not really mixing it up. Footwork sucks. He just kind of crashes in, and Cody Gibson was getting tagged by Brad Katona, who sure has much better cardio than Miles Johns, and I think the whole argument for the Cody Gibson side is that he has good cardio. He pushed a good pace with Brad Katona in their fight for 2 rounds, and then he started to slow down a little bit in round 3. And Miles Johns is a guy that has slowed down multiple times before. John Castaneda, Sexy Mexi, that was an example of one of those fights. I think he got submitted in round 3. But Miles Johns can get outworked. I'm just thinking if he gets the takedowns, he's going to do a good job of surviving. And I looked at that fight against Dan Argueta, and Dan Argueta was shooting multiple takedowns, pushing a pretty solid pace. And Miles Johns, I mean, he won the 3rd round. I want to say, whatever. Yeah, he won 30-27, I want to say. But he landed big shots. And I think that Miles Johns is the more dangerous striker when compared to Brad Katona, has the better power. And I think he could hurt Cody Gibson at times. But I am relying on Miles Johns to work in the takedowns, find the takedowns, and beat Cody Gibson with the takedowns and holding him there. Because when Cody Gibson gets taken down, he hasn't shown the greatest ability to get back up to his feet. And a fight that I want to bring up recently, so this is fairly recently, it was against Ray Borg, and Ray Borg, as we know, fought at the flyweight division. This was at Eagle FC, which is something pretty interesting to note, but it felt like Cody Gibson kind of started to slow down a little bit in that fight after pushing a good pace early, and after some grappling was mixed in, he started to tire out a little bit more. Brad Katona didn't land any takedowns on Cody Gibson. I'm struggling to find names right now, but I think Johns will shoot takedowns, and he'll be able to control Cody Gibson for times, and I don't think Cody Gibson will push as insane of a pace against Brad Gattoni that he did here. He won't push that same pace in this matchup is essentially what I'm trying to get at. I like the power Miles Johns. I like the takedowns. I don't like the money line at -140. I wouldn't play it because Miles Johns can get so tired and he can just get finished in the third round, or if he loses round 2, he probably loses round 3. I'm going to say 29-28 Miles Johns, winning the first 2, slowing down in round 3. And he did look tired in round 3 against Dan Argueta, but Dan Argueta didn't look the freshest either. And Dan looked a little bit tired. And I want to say Dan Argueta has shown good cardio throughout his career. So Miles Johns is the pick. Low confidence. A lot of these picks are going to be low confidence. And I'm actually taking a decent amount of favorites so far. So with that being said, let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Ricardo Ramos versus Julian Erosa. Juicy J is my boy. I like Julian. I'm kind of rooting for him here because I don't want to see him go on a 3-fight losing streak. But I think he's going on a 3-fight losing streak, and Ricardo Ramos is going to land big shots here. I saw Ricardo Ramos get pressured by Zubaira Tukhugov, and say what you want about that fight. Ricardo did lose, but he actually did a decent job while getting pressured by Zubaira, who is a somewhat decent... What division is this? Featherweight fighter. And I know Zubaira just lost to Elsbrenner, I want to say, and everyone's calling him a fraud, and they're all saying he's overrated. But it is what it is, right? Ricardo Ramos, he's got good power, and he lands big shots at times. I think he hurt Zubaira at the start or the end of round 1. He's got good power. Julian Erosa has been hit. He just got knocked out by Fernando Padilla, who fights later on this card. And Julian Erosa also got knocked out by Alex Caceres in the first round by a head kick. I picked Caceres there as an underdog. And another fight, what am I talking about here? Sorry, Julian Erosa has had some great performances where in the past he's just been able to take good punishment, walk forward and outdog his opponents and beat them late. And that could happen here as he does have the better cardio. Ricardo Ramos isn't this guy with horrible cardio. In round 3, he was still in it at times against Zubaira. And I like that he fought at the back foot, yet found big shots. And then in round 3, he kind of had moments where he was pressuring forward, putting Zubaira in concerning positions. And when I look at Julian Erosa, he's the type of fighter that just needs a good chin to win fights. And against a guy with good power, he's going to get hit because that's what Juicy J does. He gets hit and then he wins fights based off of taking enough damage and surviving later and landing big shots while getting hit. I just look at Juicy J, Julian Erosa, as a guy that needs a chin to win fights with his fighting style, and I can't trust that that chin is there anymore. But to be entirely fair, against Fernando Padilla, that was an early stoppage. I thought he could have recovered. Now, maybe 5 seconds later, Fernando would have landed a combination to put him away. But Ricardo Ramos, man, he's got good power. He's got a really good submission game. I think they're both black belt, but Ricardo Ramos is a pretty high-level black belt. Despite just getting submitted by Charles Jourdain, he has good submissions, excuse me. Decent wrestling as well. He took down Bill Aljo multiple times, and that is a good win to have on record. I think he's going to land a big shot in round 1. And like I said, Julian Erosa gets hit, and I can't trust him to recover from the shots that he's recovered from in the past. Even though he's had some really impressive performances, he went tooth and nail with Steven Peterson. That's who it was. And that performance didn't really make me too impressed. And if you're getting shot or hit with those shots against Steven Peterson, I think Ricardo Ramos will land them. And his chance arguably worse than it was at that stage in his career. So that's the pick. Ricardo Ramos, round 1 KO. Let's move on to the next part of the card, which is Kurt Holobaugh versus Trey Ogden. I'm going with another favorite, man. I know everyone is picking Kurt Holobaugh, and I can understand why. He's probably the better striker in this matchup. If it's on the feet, he will beat Trey Ogden. But the thing about Trey Ogden that I like here is he's good at finding takedowns within striking exchanges, but also he's good at escaping exchanges in the pocket, and he showed this against Nicholas Mota. What happened with Nicholas Mota is when he would charge in, look for a big shot, Trey Ogden would then dip under and then circle out to his right or his left, whatever it might have been. But the point of it being is he would almost level change on his way out, which sets up his takedowns, because when he finds takedowns, he finds it when fighters are looking for the big shot, pressuring him up against the cage. And when they start anticipating him to duck his head and kind of angle out to the side, and they're looking for that next angle to find Trey Ogden dipping out, that's when Trey Ogden dips and then he goes for the takedown. And it feels like at times fighters get a little bit too focused on where Trey Ogden is going to be, and they forget that he can just go in and shoot a takedown. I think Kurt Holobaugh is going to get caught overextending, and he's going to get taken down, because I've been rewatching a lot of Kurt Holobaugh fights against Thiago Moises. What did he struggle with? The low kick, and Thiago Moises is a better striker than Trey Ogden, but Trey Ogden is very fundamentally sound, and he's not going to go in there trading with the pocket of Kurt Holobaugh. That's what I like about Trey Ogden. He's smart. He'll stick to a game plan. I like his jab. I like his cardio as well. I like his low kicks, and I think he's going to work the low kick pretty well, and I think he is going to find takedowns. He looked pretty strong, stronger than normal in his most recent performance against Nicholas Mota, and I know Mota's not that good, but he just had a comeback fight and beat Tom Nolan, knocked him out in the first round, so that shows you Nicholas Mota still is a very dangerous fighter. And Trey Ogden kind of just dipped out the way, kept circling, then found the takedowns, and he's very good at finding takedowns within striking exchanges, and Kurt Holobaugh does overextend on his shots, and Kurt Holobaugh was taken down by Austin Hubbard multiple times, and he had the better jiu-jitsu in that matchup, but Trey Ogden is good at controlling people from on top. He was doing this very well against Nicholas Mota. There's another fight as well that I'm not going to fucking remember right now, but fuck off. He's a BJJ black belt as well. I'm not sure if Kurt Holobaugh is a black belt, but he's got very good submissions, very good ability to chain submissions together. I don't see him submitting Trey Ogden. I see Trey Ogden just staying very fundamentally sound on top, getting his top control. By the way, he should have beaten Nicholas Mota. Now that I remember that was a no contest. He should have won the first 2 rounds. For whatever reason, that fight wasn't completely given to Trey Ogden because a couple of judges, or maybe it was just one judge, gave Nicholas Mota round 2. I don't know how that is the case, but he was going out there. He's going to dominate Nicholas Mota in round 3, win that. And the stupid part is the UFC didn't give him his win bonus. And I mean, the ref thought Mota was out, and then he stopped that dumb fucking job. But anyways, outside of that, Trey Ogden, despite winning the first 2 rounds very clearly going on his way to winning round 3, potentially finding a submission, doesn't get his win bonus because the ref made a mistake. Horrible job by the UFC. You should be paying that guy out. That is a robbery. But Trey Ogden, he's a good jab, good low kick, and I think he's going to circle and eventually find takedowns. And Kurt Holobaugh's takedown defense is dog shit. Dog shit. He's bad at stuffing takedowns. This is the fight I wanted to bring up. Thank fuck I remembered this. Lee Hammond. It was the first fight Kurt Holobaugh had, episode 6 of The Ultimate Fighter. I don't know why I remember that. Actually, I do because I was looking for it, but he got taken down, and when he found takedowns, he got out-scrambled. And that tells you I don't trust him on the ground. Lee Hammond out-scrambled him and was beating him on the ground for the entire fight up until he got guillotine choked. And Lee Hammond is a striker at the most part. I'm just telling you, I think Kurt Holobaugh has bad takedown defense, and when he gets taken down, I think he's going to be chilling on bottom, looking for submission attempts, and I don't think he's going to find the submission on Trey Ogden, to be entirely honest with you. Trey Ogden is smart, has a game plan. I know he sees Kurt Holobaugh looking to strike and land the big shots, but he's going to try and duck under, find takedowns, duck under, circle out. Very good at it, pretty well timed, although he's not quick, and Kurt Holobaugh has the quicker, more powerful hands in this matchup, and he is dangerous. And although Nicholas Mota hurt Trey Ogden at times, Trey Ogden still stayed fundamentally sound, has never been knocked out, so that's something to note too. I think Trey Ogden, by decision, I'll say 29-28. Kurt Holobaugh will have some big moments, but I think based off control time and just landing low kicks and circling, Trey Ogden's going to win this fight. Kurt Holobaugh also, he beat Jason Knight, and Jason Knight's not good. He's a slow guy, had knee braces on in that fight, so that tells you where it was at. I didn't find that win impressive, but he gets hit at times too against bad fighters. I'm going with Trey Ogden. I think he's pretty decent. Moving on to Luis Pajuelo versus Fernando Padilla. I'm taking the underdog of Luis Pajuelo. He's got good power. He's a boxing champion in Peru. I like that. Good power. And what I think he does have that might be a little bit underrated in this matchup is good cardio. I don't think I've seen him. No, I have seen him go to a decision. And in round 3, he seemed to be pushing a good pace. And he pushes an insane pace throughout all 3 rounds. And he is in your face nonstop. And I think Fernando Padilla will be the better striker at range with his low kicks. And Pajuelo has struggled with low kicks at times. So if Padilla is very good at keeping at range, he probably will win this fight. I just don't think he will be able to because he looks slow at times. I don't like his footwork. He's very square. And there's something just about the way his head is positioned. He's really skinny. He's malnourished. Pajuelo, he skips leg day. But Fernando Padilla, he skips nutrition day. And for that reason, I'm going with Pajuelo. Luis, man. I can't do it with these names today. Jeez. But Luis, he's got good power. He's really just good at getting in your face. He'll eat a couple of low kicks and he'll say fuck, and then he'll limp a couple of times, and then boop, he's right back in your face. Beautiful combinations within the pocket. He's got a good chin. I've seen him get clipped with a big shot, recover immediately, put the pressure right back on. And I think at some point he's going to find the malnourished chin of Fernando Padilla. I'm just saying, his neck is extremely small. And for whatever reason, just the way that it sits, it makes me feel like he's going to get caught with the hook. And he's very susceptible to being caught in the pocket with the hook. And I've seen him trade in the pocket against Kyle Nelson. This is a fight I've been needing to bring up. He looked a little bit weird. He doesn't seem very defensively sound within the pocket. And he drops his hands, and he's going to be open to getting caught by a really good pocket boxer, Luis Pajuelo, who will struggle fighting at range, but I think he's just going to go out there, let his nuts hang, and bang with him up against the cage, pressuring Padilla nonstop. And Padilla struggled with the pressure from Kyle Nelson at times and fumbled that fight. I mean, he was winning for the most part and then got touched and rocked at times by Kyle Nelson. Kyle Nelson's not the most powerful guy, and that's not something that I want to see. Who else did Padilla fight? Oh, he beat Julian Erosa. Good for him. But once again, one of those examples where I'm saying Julian Erosa needs his chin to survive and be good. And although I think that was an early stoppage, but if Julian Erosa can't eat shots, he's not going to win fights because he's so damn hittable. And Padilla hurt him bad and potentially would have ended up finding that finish anyways. Weird fight, but Padilla isn't the guy that's going to shoot takedowns. That's something I want to get at too. Pajuelo's takedown defense isn't that good. But if you go back and you look at Padilla's career and you're looking at, oh my gosh, he's got 12, 10, whatever submission wins throughout his record. This is going to be fucked. He's going to take down Pajuelo and win this fight. From whatever I watched, from the fights that I watched, Padilla did not shoot one takedown except once against Kyle Nelson. It was stuffed. I didn't think it was that good of a takedown entry. But all of his submission wins are from triangle and arm bars, and that means he's on his back getting taken down. I think Pajuelo, or I think this will be a striking match, and I already explained how I think this goes down. I think Pajuelo is going to be pushing an insane pace. I kind of trust his cardio for some weird reason, and I just haven't seen him slow down. I've seen the fight go into round 2, and Pajuelo's pushing the same pace he was a minute into the first round, and he looks a little bit tired, a little bit warranted, but I could tell that this guy's probably got a solid 3 rounds of cardio, a solid 2 rounds of cardio for sure, and probably 3. So I'm going to say a round 3 TKO, maybe round 2 TKO. I think Padilla gets hit at times as well, and although he may be tough, and I might just be picking KO because he looks very scrawny, and there might be a bias there, I just think that in the pocket, I don't trust him training with Pajuelo, the champion boxer of Peru. I like that achievement, I really do. And they're both young. Actually, I think Padilla might be the younger guy. Doesn't matter. Pajuelo's a pick. He's going to get it up against the cage and win it that way by knockout. With his pressure, with his pace. Underdog, let's go. Move on to the next fight of the card. Youssef Zalal versus Billy Q. Going with Youssef Zalal. Very reluctantly, I think on the feet, Billy Q should be the better striker, but I do think Youssef Zalal is very good at kind of hovering out the outside, circling, and he's not in the highest volume of fights, but he is a guy with very solid cardio who I think could be in high-paced fights. Something I do want to address, though, I hear everyone talking about, well, he survived Ilia Topuria and turned him into a grappler. Not the fucking case. When Ilia Topuria came into the UFC, he was a grappler, and he was more comfortable grappling with Youssef Zalal than striking with him. I think he would have outstruck Youssef Zalal if it was a pure striking fight at that moment, and he would do right now. I think everyone knows that would be the case, and he probably would finish Youssef Zalal. Anyways, what happened in that fight? Ilia took him down, had like 5 submission attempts on him. If you want to know how Ilia Topuria kind of grapples and the way that it kind of works out, that's a great fight to watch because he chained together submissions very well, and it was very impressive to see. But something that Youssef Zalal does very well is he survives submission attempts and then scrambles into top control, scrambles into dominant positions, and then at times he kind of screws it up. But Billy Q is a guy that when he gets taken down, he's not the greatest at getting back up to the feet, and he got taken down 3 damn times by Damon fucking Jackson, who was old as shit, and Damon Jackson was landing way too many shots on Billy Q's chin for me to feel confident in picking Billy Q. And what else do I want to mention? Yeah, you got taken down and held down by Damon Jackson. And Shane Burgos wasn't a guy that was hovering around the octagon the same way that Youssef Zalal was. Someone that did this pretty well was Edson Barbosa, who is clearly doing very well in the featherweight division right now, just beat Sadiq Youssef. Edson Barbosa is better than Youssef Zalal. Much better, much more dangerous, so it's not a great comparison. It felt like Billy Q was having problems kind of stalking down and finding Edson Barbosa, which is why I picked Edson Barbosa in that matchup as an underdog. Kind of impressed to see that Edson Barbosa was the underdog in that matchup, seeing how often Billy Q got hit. Now, he is fairly durable. I don't think he has the worst chin in the world, and it would take a good shot like that to knock out a Billy Q, that flying knee. But Youssef Zalal has some good knees of his own. He's got really good low kicks. The problem is he just doesn't go to him. And if he went to the low kicks, he would have success, as Billy Q's leg was massively hurt against Shane Burgos. So that leads me to think, hey, Youssef Zalal with the good game plan should win this fight. But I like the fact that he's going to be hovering, circling around the octagon. He's pretty rangy, and he does well with straight punches. And a lot of people are looking at, well, he beat bums on the regional scene, and now he's back in the UFC. What do you mean? Okay, the reason why he fought that competition in his most recent fight was because that was The third fight he took that night, one of them was in boxing, one of them was in kickboxing, and the third one was in MMA, and he beat that guy in the first round. So anyways, took on 3 fights in one night. He's young, he's improving, he's got good cardio, and Billy Q weaponizes his pace throughout his fights. Youssef Zalal has great cardio. I feel like I completely abandoned talking about that Ilia Topuria fight, but Youssef Zalal won round 3 because Ilia Topuria started to gas out. Now, why did Ilia start to gas out? It was because not only did he go for fucking 5 submissions, if not more, and started to burn out his hands, but Ilia took that fight on short notice against Youssef Zalal, who had a full camp. I think he was preparing for Sung Woo Choi. And something I don't like is Zalal was taken down by Sung Woo Choi, but it's hard to control Zalal. He'll probably get controlled for like a minute, and then he'll reverse position after you go for submission attempt, and then now he's on top. And I think if Billy Q shooting takedowns, Zalal will find a way on top control, and if Zalal finds takedowns, he will control Billy Q. And the thing that I will say about Zalal, in a high-volume fight, which he is never in on the feet for whatever reason, because there's a lot of grappling and whatnot, I think he could be very good in round 3 against Damon Blackshear when he was going high-volume, pushing for the finish. He did great, almost finished Damon Blackshear, and that's a pretty good win. Now, that was at the bantamweight division, so that's not the most impressive win considering Zalal is a featherweight and Blackshear is clearly a bantamweight, but I don't know, there's something about Zalal. I like his cardio. I like his ability to float around the octagon. I love his straight punches. Like I said, he's got good weapons to win this fight. His flying knee, his low kick will be successful, but he doesn't go to it ever, and that pisses me off. The one time he did go to it was against Sean Woodson. But he likes to work in grappling, and when you look at Damon Jackson versus Billy Q, and I'm picking Zalal based solely off that performance against Damon Jackson that Billy Q had. I hated that performance, but also, like, there's been other performances in the past where Billy Q's just getting hit and by worse strikers than Youssef Zalal, in my opinion. I like Zalal's gym as well, but when Damon Jackson took down Billy Q, a couple of times it was within the clinch. Zalal works within the clinch a lot of the time, and I think this will be boring at times with Zalal because he's not that fun of a fighter, but I just don't trust Billy Q to stalk down Zalal, although he is high volume. Zalal is kind of hard to hit. He's got decent head movement. He is very durable. I don't see Billy Q finding a finish in round 3 by overwhelming him with volume. And I think if Zalal is finding the takedowns, which I kind of do believe he will, I think Zalal wins it. I think he's got the higher level jiu-jitsu. When it comes to the wrestling, I think whoever shoots will be able to find takedowns because I don't think the takedown defense of either guy is that good. And when it comes to the striking, I do favor Billy Q slightly, but I think that with the way that Zalal moves around the octagon and kind of will strike in this matchup, it could set up his takedowns. And for that reason, I'm going to go 29-28, Youssef Zalal, but if Billy Q keeps us on the feet, I think he should win this. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, Payton Talbott versus Cameron Saaiman. I was going to go with Payton Talbott, but now I'm going with Cameron Saaiman. I just rewatched this fight with Amanda Ribas. He fights well at both stances. He starts fairly fast, especially in comparison to Payton Talbott, who is a slow starter, and Payton Talbott's grappling is just something I can't trust. I hate the way he stuffs takedowns. Even when he stuffs them successfully, he turns his back almost every time, or sometimes he just goes for one underhook. His takedown defense sucks, and he is facing probably the best grappler he's ever faced and probably the best striker he's ever faced in Cameron Saaiman, and clearly the best fighter he's ever faced. Cameron Saaiman has good cardio, so Talbott is not going to be having the success in the later rounds that he was having on the regional scene. I'm going to have to go with the more experienced guy, and although Cameron is younger, Cameron has shown very good scrambles. And what I don't like about Cameron Saaiman's grappling, it's very weird to the point where he can get taken down, but like Youssef Zalal, who we just broke down, when he's putting submission attempts or whatever, he's very good at reversing, and once he is on top, he's decently good at controlling it until we get to one singular position where he's looking for the rear naked choke. Then he almost always slides off the top of opponents. He's weird. There was a fight where he got taken down like 7 times. I'm going to find the guy's name right now. I can't remember the guy's name. Where he slid off the top multiple times. And then against Christian Rodriguez, same thing happened where he slid off the top looking for the rear naked choke because he's always too high for whatever reason. The fighter's name was, I'm revealing it right now, Steven Kozlov. He's always sliding off the top of his opponents, which does kind of make me nervous for Payton Talbott, or in this matchup against Payton Talbott, because Payton Talbott will give up his back when defending takedowns. And if Cameron Saaiman just takes the back of Payton Talbott, he could just slide right off the top, as he's done multiple times throughout his career, and then end up on bottom position. But if he's on bottom position against Payton Talbott, I trust him to scramble back on top, finding good positions, if not getting back up to the feet. He's got good grappling. Like he beat Steven Kozlov with his grappling by finding takedowns, by reversing him. He's got pretty decent submissions from what I have seen. And then on the feet, he's good at switching stances. He's got quick hands, good kicks. I don't think Payton Talbott has dealt with someone that can switch stances, that can push the pace of Cameron Saaiman. And he's just not a guy that you want to start out down around to. And Payton Talbott has said it multiple times. He likes to kind of settle into his fights, and he's lost a lot of first rounds for this reason. I didn't like his performance against Nick Aguirre. And Nick Aguirre was a guy that got taken down and held down by Dan Argueta, so that tells you where Nick Aguirre is at. Now, I think Payton Talbott on the feet in a pure striking matchup should win this, but I can't trust him. And I do like the fact that this is in the Apex, a smaller octagon for Payton Talbott, but like Payton Talbott gets hit, I think he's shown a little bit of a susceptibility to getting chewed up with low kicks by Cortez. There was another guy I want to mention, but mainly Cortez is where I'm drawing that from, the Cortez fight on the Contender Series. But he gets hit, and I think Cameron Saaiman has a good enough cardio. He has enough diverse tools to get this one done, and Saaiman has shown a pretty good chin. He's taken clean shots from Rodriguez and Mana Martinez very well, and he's shown an ability to fight off the back foot pretty well. What I didn't like, though, when I watched his fight, I'm talking about Saaiman's fight on the Contender Series, it was against Wang Kim, I want to say. He lost the first round on, I would say, 2 of the judges' scorecards. It was pretty close, but he kind of struggled being on the back foot. But since then, against Mana Martinez and other fighters as well, he's shown an ability off the back foot pretty well, switching both stances, landing kicks out of both stances, low kicks, head kicks, body kicks, you name it. At times, he gets a little bit wild, which I don't like. I hate his spinning attacks at times where he's going for the spinning elbows, more the spinning back fists, I mean. Spinning kicks, it can leave him out of position. I just think Payton Talbott gets hit too much, and he will be down round 1. And I kind of trust Cameron Saaiman and his camp to game plan correctly. Obviously, Dricus du Plessis is now a champion, and he beat John Strickland. But I think that's going to instill some confidence in him now that he has someone in his camp that is a champion. I think Payton Talbott will give him opportunities to grapple, and Cameron Saaiman will win these opportunities to grapple. And I'm looking at Payton Talbott on his fight on the regional scene. What is the guy's name? I'm not going to remember this right now, but it was his most recent fight on the regional scene. He's just getting taken down almost every time a guy wishes, and I don't think that guy is that great. I mean, he's probably not the worst fighter on the regional scene, but since that fight against Payton Talbott, that guy on the regional scene has now lost a fight. So that tells you, I don't know. And that guy seemed to slow down as the fight went on as well. So I'm not confident. I think Payton Talbott can land the bigger shots, but this is something that I haven't seen people mentioning. I think when it comes to a close decision, which I think this will be, I'm going to say 29-28, Cameron Saaiman based off the first 2 rounds. Payton Talbott's hair is going to be moving all over the place whenever a strike lands from Cameron Saaiman, which might lead the judges to think, well, shit, that was a more damaging shot than it actually was. So for that reason, we're going to go with Cameron Saaiman. He's the better grappler. I think if it hits the ground, there's no question he will have success. Now, will he be able to control Payton Talbott? That is a question, but if Payton Talbott's getting controlled for a round against Nick Aguirre, I think Cameron Saaiman will be able to, even though he falls off the back a lot, I think Payton Talbott is not that good when it comes to, scrambling. People say he's got good scrambles. I don't know. They look sloppy. He looks out of position at times. I hate the way he defends takedowns. He'll turn his back and just try to separate the hands. So, interesting, kind of weird fight. But Payton Talbott, he's got good kicks, powerful. I mean, he'll just go out there, eat big shots, land the bigger ones, and I think he can win this fight based off damage, landing the more damaging blows. But I think it'll be close enough on the feet with Cameron Saaiman's grappling mixed in that he'll win this fight. I trust the experience. I trust the ability to fight out of both stances. I love his cardio. I've named my reasonings why. I think Payton Talbott has a good chance. I wouldn't hammer Cameron Saaiman as an underdog, but after rewatching that Mana Martinez fight, I mean, Cameron Saaiman's got good boxing. He's pretty good within the pocket, and he's got a good chin. So I'm going with Cameron Saaiman. Low confidence. Moving on to the next fight of the card, which is Karl. No, it's not. It's AJ Dobson versus Edmen Shahbazyan. I'll leave this one short and simple. AJ Dobson has some power. He has a wrestling background, but he doesn't really use it that much. And he got picked apart at range by Armen Petrosian. Clearly lost 30-27. I don't know why people thought AJ Dobson won that fight or why they thought he did pretty decent in that fight. He just sat there, low volume, missing shots, landing on the guard of Armen Petrosian, not really landing clean, getting picked apart at range, like I was saying. And Edmen Shahbazyan has bad cardio, and that's why you can trust Dobson, because he has the better cardio and he has a pretty decent chin. But he is fairly hittable, and I think Edmen Shahbazyan is going to bring the fight to him, land big shots, and I think he can find a KO. I'm going to say in the second round. Now, if Edmen goes out there pushing for the KO too badly, whatever it is, in the first 2 rounds, and he is pushed an insane pace for the first 2 rounds, I would live bet Dobson, because Edmen will be a massive favorite, and that's where he can gas out. But ultimately, I don't think Dobson has the pace or the pressure to force Edmen Shahbazyan to gas out. And what I wanted to mention, against Anthony Hernandez, a guy that looks great in the middleweight division, I picked him over Roman Kopylov. He got it done. One of the most underrated prospects, fighters in the middleweight division. Anthony Hernandez got a couple of his takedowns stuffed by Edmen Shahbazyan, quite a few, and he was doing pretty good early. Edmen Shahbazyan was actually doing really good early, better than Roman Kopylov, landing big shots. I think he hurt Anthony Hernandez at one time, so that was impressive. I think he is young, so he will be improving. I don't know how he's 26, but he's 26, and he's only lost to pretty high levels of competition, and AJ Dobson just very clearly is not one of these high levels of competition. Derek Brunson, Anthony Hernandez. I'm not going to go through it all, but I think Edmen Shahbazyan is going to go after AJ Dobson. Dobson will get hit. I really don't love his striking. I don't love his takedowns either. He should be the better grappler. I'm talking about AJ Dobson. He does have the better chin, but he's just clearly not the better striker, and he won't push the pace needed to gas out Edmen Shahbazyan. Maybe he finds a big shot because Edmen does get hit, but Edmen, in my opinion, is clearly the more technical striker, and if he doesn't gas out, which I'm not expecting to happen in this matchup, he could find a finish or win this by decision. And honestly, he is my most confident pick on this card. He's sitting at -200. I got him at like -180. Played a little bit on him there. I wouldn't really hammer -200 if you want to put someone in your parlay. I think Shahbazyan could be that guy. But when I say he's the most confident pick on that card, that's because this card has a lot of close fights to predict, which is why I've done so much research, and I'm going into fucking every single detail about every single fight at this point. I have no clue how long this video is, but let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Karl Williams versus Justin Tafa. I wanted to go with Tafa, but I go back, I rewatch his fights, and I'm looking at the guys that shot takedowns on him. It's been two people, Carlos Felipe and Harry Hunsucker. Horrible fighters. Karl Williams doesn't have the greatest takedown entries, but he'll chain takedowns together. And I watched Karl Williams' interview. He knows that Justin Tafa is going to try and brawl, stand and bang, and knock him out. He's aware of the threat. I don't know how you couldn't be, but he's aware of the threat. And I think he's going to do nothing but wrestle early. And if he gets Tafa down early, I think Tafa is stuck and he's going to be on the ground on his back for the rest of the round. And probably tired by the time round 2 hits. He might have like a round of cardio in round 2. And then after that, he probably fades, probably slows down. And maybe he's live for the first minute at round 3 after resting on the stool. But I think Karl Williams is going to find takedowns and just control him. This is going to be a very boring fight. I kind of hope Tafa finds a KO. But as much as I hate Karl Williams' fighting style, after I watch his interview, he's a very nice, cheery, happy-go-lucky guy, and I kind of like the guy, but he's boring. So I'm going to be cheering for Tafa. Williams will be the pick. I'll say 30-27. He's going to find takedowns. And although he looks so bad against Chase Sherman, horrible against Chase Sherman, and it's Chase Sherman, but if you actually go back looking at Chase Sherman's career, he's shown a pretty decent takedown defense. Karl Williams landed like 1 of 10 takedowns on Chase Sherman, so that shows you how bad that performance was, and he was getting hit on the feet by Chase Sherman. But Chase Sherman stuffed like 8 out of 9 takedowns from Parker Porter. He's shown an ability to just know what he's doing on the ground at times. He got the whizzer pretty well against Karl Williams, and there was positions that Karl Williams got Chase Sherman into that if that is Justin Tafa, I think that Karl Williams will be able to capitalize a little bit better. And Justin Tafa won't be as good as getting back up to the feet as Chase Sherman was at times. But yeah, Karl Williams is quicker. I'm not going to trust Justin Tafa, the fat bastard, who has stuffed takedowns from Harry Hunsucker and Carlos Felipe. That's not what I'm going to use as the primary source to put my foot down and say he's stuffing the takedowns from Karl Williams and he's going to knock him out. Because although when he stuffed the takedowns, it looked pretty good. Like I'm saying, there were horrible shots from fat, sloppy opponents. And he's lost to Jared Vanderaa. Other fights that haven't impressed me, although he beat Austin Lane. That was pretty impressive. I picked him to do that. This is kind of the matchup where I just think a grappler in the heavyweight division that's quick will have success, even though Karl Williams' takedown shots aren't that good. So Karl Williams, 30-27 decision. Justin Tafa, I can't rely on his takedown defense. Yeah. Let's move on to the next fight of the card, which is Amanda Ribas versus Rose Namajunas. I like Amanda Ribas. I'm cheering for Amanda Ribas. I'm going to be picking Rose Namajunas. She's got good cardio. She's been 5 rounds against Manon Fiorot. That was a pretty decent performance. I thought Manon was going to beat her more clearly. And Rose, I think, broke a finger or broke her hand in the first round. She's got good grappling. Now, Ribas has the submission advantage. She's got the better jiu-jitsu. Rose was taken down and submitted in a grappling match. I want to say against Jillian Robertson. It could be a different women's MMA fighter. Not entirely sure, but it was like a mid-tier women's MMA fighter with good grappling. And Rose got submitted quick, and it was not a good look. But I think Rose should be able to stop the takedowns coming her way. And Ribas likes to strike for the most part. And against Luana Pinheiro, she was losing the first 2 rounds, if I recall correctly. And she needed a big round in round 3. And she got it. She landed a spinning wheel kick and ended up putting Luana Pinheiro away. impressive. I like her. She's fun to watch on the feet, but Rose Namajunas' wins over Zhang Weili are very impressive, whether or not it was at the strawweight division and now she's moving up to the flyweight. And there were some photos of Rose looking very fat going into this camp. I think she's slimmed down. I can't trust her to show up in bad shape. I think she wins it, man. If she shows up like she did against Karl Esparza, she obviously loses, but that's not something you can really depend upon. I like the fact that she's been 5 rounds. Amanda Ribas has not been 5 rounds. She's been finished multiple times by KO, has a little bit of a chin issue. The kicks from Rose Namajunas will give Amanda Ribas problems. The cardio, the movement, the takedowns if she wants to get them. She does have to be cautious if she does take down Amanda Ribas of the submission game from Amanda Ribas. Ribas does have some knockout power, but in a 5-round fight, I don't trust Amanda Ribas to win this by decision. She could find a KO or a submission, potentially a finish. But Rose has looked good. And against Manon Fiorot, I was fairly impressed by that matchup. Good to see coming off that performance against Carlos Esparza especially. And against Zhang Weili, those performances were impressive. I like her movement. I like her ability to take this fight down to the ground as long as she stays out of submissions, which I kind of trust her to do to some degree. And I just like her striking. I think she's going to find a TKO at some point, overwhelming Amanda Ribas with volume. I think she'll find a big shot, and Amanda Ribas is going to get wobbled, rocked. I'll say TKO round 4, just because I don't trust the chin of Amanda Ribas. This isn't me saying that Rose Namajunas is insanely powerful. I know she doesn't have too many knockout wins throughout her career, but I think she's going to find a TKO at some point. And I am cheering for Amanda Ribas. I hope she can find a finish. She's fun. She seems like a cool girl. I like her spinning shit, but just sometimes the way she throws strikes, she's loading up. It doesn't look technical. And that is women's MMA, but at times I've been impressed with Rose Namajunas' technique. Even though I'm not a big fan of her, I can admit she's impressed me at times. And just saying that about a women's fighter tells you she's pretty decent. So Rose Namajunas is the pick. Round 4 KO, minus 200. I wouldn't play it because this feels like Amanda Ribas can make something happen for some reason. In a smaller octagon, I kind of like it more for Amanda Ribas. We'll see what happens. Rose Namajunas is the pick. That's going to conclude this card. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. Let me know if there's any picks you disagree with, anything I didn't mention. I'm always open to different sides of the argument. But yeah, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.